Dear fellow truth seekers, thank you and welcome for visiting my channel, MythoReligio. MythoReligio is a series of books about religious comparison studies between the stories in Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism and Buddhism, directly from their sacred books and world mythologies, hence the name MythoReligio. The purpose is to retrace the prehistory of humanity, since I am not fully satisfied with either the explanations from the point of view of creationists nor evolutionists. There are so many missing links in both explanations. If you feel the same, then you are on the right channel. In this book series, I will also analyze about the prehistory of humanity from the archaeological records, modern scientific point of view, and other alternative theories, such as the ancient alien theories and Atlantis or Lemuria legends. After thorough research of circa 30 years, I recognize many similarities between all religious stories and even mythologies, and surprisingly, some of them are in accordance or even beyond modern science that have been proven as correct. Thus, I came to the conclusion that all religions must have come from the same source. And all these religious stories and mythologies, although heavily jumbled up, are actually telling one mega story, the true prehistory of our common ancestors. This mega story is quite different than what we have been told to believe and will truly blow your mind, as it is more fascinating than our imagination. If you have watched the earlier videos in this channel, I believe you can see some of the similarities too. If you haven't and you truly want to do a religious comparative study, I suggest that you do so. The best way to do a comprehensive religious study via this channel is by watching the videos starting from number 1 and continue until this present video and so on. That way you will see a clear pattern. For deeper analysis that I cannot share in this platform due to its sensitive nature that leads to the above conclusion, kindly read the books that are available in ebook format that can be found in my website www.mythoreligio.com or the physical books at Amazon in color or black and white version. Dear fellow truth seekers, in this video I am continuing with the Buddhist story, in particular concerning the Buddha. Several religious scholars, among others the American author D.M. Murdoch, aka Acharya S., and the eminent American Christian scholar Dr. Marcus Borg, have detected similarities between the stories of the Buddha and Jesus Christ. In this video, I will merely share the story without too many commentaries and analysis. Maybe you can detect the similarities yourself. I will do the analysis in my later videos. So, the following is the simplified story of Buddha Sakyamuni, the historical Buddha, who is believed to have lived between 563 and 483 BCE, around 500 years before the birth of Jesus Christ. As a bodhisattva, i.e. enlightened being, the Buddha had passed through thousands of existences before coming to earth for his ultimate transmigration. Buddha Sakyamuni or Siddhartha Gautama. The story of the Buddha came from several classic Buddhist texts, particularly the Buddha Charita of Ashvaghosha, the Lalita Vistara, and the Jataka. The Jataka is a massive collection of Buddhist folklore about previous incarnations of the Buddha, both in human and animal form. The Jataka was originally written in Pali, language native to the Indian subcontinent. More than 2,500 years ago, there was a king called Suddhodana. He married a beautiful princess named Maya. The couple ruled over the Sakya, a warrior tribe living next to the Kolia tribe in the north of India in what is now known as Nepal. One full moon night, the queen had a vivid dream. She felt herself being carried away by 4 devas or spirits to a lake in the Himalayas. After bathing her in the lake, the Devas clothed her in heavenly clothes, anointed her with perfumes, and bedecked her with divine flowers. Soon after, a white elephant holding a white lotus flower in its trunk appeared and circled her 3 times, entering her womb through her right side, thus ensuring an immaculate conception, after which she was pregnant with the purest one child. The birth of Siddhartha Gautama. When her time came, Queen Maya went into the garden full of blossoming trees. She reached up to touch the blossoms and gave painless birth to a son. He immediately walked and spoke. Then the queen and her son were showered with perfume blossoms, and 2 streams of sparkling water poured from the sky to bathe them. The infant stood and took 7 steps, whereupon flowers grew underneath his footsteps and proclaimed, "I alone am the world-honored one." 5 days after his birth, the young prince received the name of Siddhartha Gautama. When his parents took him to the temple, the statues of the gods prostrated themselves before him. Furthermore, at this time an ascetic of high spiritual attainments visited the palace to see the royal baby. The ascetic, immediately foreseeing the child's future greatness, saluted him with clasped hands. After 7 days, the queen died, and the infant prince was nursed and raised by the queen's sister, Pajapati, who was also married to King Suddhodana. Siddhartha's childhood and youth. The young prince grew to be a very compassionate and intelligent young man. When he was 12 years old, the king called the wise Brahmins, i.e. Hindu priests, in council. They revealed that Siddhartha would devote himself to asceticism if he cast his eyes on old age, sickness, or death, and if he were to meet a hermit. Hearing this, the king kept Siddhartha inside the palace when no old nor sick person was allowed to enter. Then, when he was 16 years old, he was married to Princess Yasodhara. The king did everything he could think of to ensure his son Prince Siddhartha would grow up prepared for a life following in his footsteps and become a king. He ordered a high wall to be built around the palace, including its parks and gardens, but the prince was not happy living like a prisoner, practicing self-mortification. So finally he went outside the palace and saw all the things that were predicted by the wise men. He left everything to become a monk to find ways to stop suffering, such as old age, sickness, and death. People started calling him Sakyamuni, meaning the sage from Sakya tribe. Together with 5 companions, he learned from 2 teachers about deep meditation and practiced self-mortification to acquire wisdom for 6 years by fasting and holding his breath until he passed out. He finally decided that this is not the way to enlightenment, so he started begging for food and ceased fasting, and the 5 friends or followers stopped following him, thinking that Siddhartha had given up the ascetic life for a luxurious life again. Becoming the Buddha. He meditated for 7 weeks under a banyan tree to become a Buddha, the awakened one, where he was tempted by all kinds of desires by the evil god Mara and his army. But Siddhartha kept on meditating. In the 3rd week, Siddhartha saw through his mind's eye that the Devas, the gods in the heavens, were not sure whether he had attained enlightenment or not. To prove his enlightenment, Siddhartha created a golden bridge in the air and walked up and down the bridge for 7 days. Siddhartha then went and meditated at the foot of a Mukhalinda tree. It began to rain heavily, and a huge king cobra came out and coiled around his body 7 times to keep him warm, placing his hood over his head to protect him from the rain. After 7 days, the rain stopped, and the snake changed into a young man who paid his respects to Siddhartha, now the Buddha. After the 7 weeks of meditation, the Buddha went to Benares, on the banks of Ganges River in India, and met his 5 friends who had abandoned him. They saw that Siddhartha had changed. There was a nobility and majestic around him as they had never seen before. The Buddha told them that he had found the way to deathlessness. One of them rushed and brought water to wash his feet. At first they did not believe him, but after listening they finally became his followers. He taught them the teaching of the middle way, avoiding extremes of both self-indulgence and self-torture. With the conversion of the 5 ascetics, the order of the monks was established. As soon as he had 60 disciples, the Buddha sent them away to teach people everywhere. Return to the kingdom and the Buddha's miracles. Then the Buddha returned to his father's kingdom. Some were still unsure about whether Siddhartha was really enlightened or not. Some perceived him as the same Siddhartha that had abandoned his family to become an ascetic. In response, in order to clear the obscurations to their pure perception, it is said that the Buddha displayed the Yamaka Patiharya, or the twin miracle. The twin miracle is a miracle wherein the Buddha produced flames from the upper part of his body and streams of water from the lower part of his body. Alternates this and does so similarly between the left and right sides of his body. 6 colored rays spring from every pore of his body, reaching up to the highest realms and down to the lowest depth. He is said to have performed this miracle on numerous occasions to ripen the minds of those in attendance. According to The Historic of India, Great Ages of Men, a history of the world's cultures by Lucille Schulberg, like Jesus, Buddha also walked on water by levitating over a stream in order to convert a Brahmin to Buddhism. And similar to Moses, when an area was inundated by a flood, he commanded the waters to stand back so that he could walk between them on dry ground. Another one of the Buddha's miracles was to expel grass and chaff from a well, so the water became radiant and clean. On a side note, it is also interesting that some Buddha statues are depicted with a swastika cross on its chest. Although today in many Western countries the swastika is stigmatized because of its use in the Nazism, it remains commonly used as a lucky or auspicious religious symbol in Hinduism and Buddhism today. The Buddha and Princess Yasodhara. When the Buddha had taken his evening meal that day in the palace, all who knew him as Prince Siddhartha came to talk to him. They were surprised but happy to see their prince dressed like a monk. Yasodhara stayed in her room thinking, Prince Siddhartha is now the enlightened one, the Buddha. He now belongs to the line of Buddhas. Is it right for me to go to him? He does not and cannot need me. I think it is better to wait and see. After a while the Buddha asked, Where is Yasodhara? She is in her room, said his father. I shall go there, said the Buddha, and giving his bowl to the king, he went to her room. As he entered, he said to the king, Let her pay respect as she likes. Say nothing. As soon as the Buddha entered the room, even before he took his seat, Yasodhara rushed to him. She fell to the floor, held his ankles, placed her head at his feet, and cried until his toes were wet with her tears. The Buddha kept quiet and nobody stopped her until she was tired of crying. King Suddhodana then said, Lord, when my daughter-in-law heard that you were wearing yellow robes, she also robed herself in yellow. When she heard you were taking 1 meal a day, she did the same. When she heard that you had given up lofty couches, she lay on a low couch. And when she heard that you had given up garland and scents, she too gave them up. So virtuous is my daughter-in-law. The Buddha nodded and said, Not only in this last birth, O king, but in the previous birth too, Yasodhara was devoted and faithful to me. On the 3rd day after the Buddha's return to the capital city, he was invited to the wedding of his youngest stepbrother. He attended the wedding and celebrations, blessed them all, and went away. Devadatta. Devadatta was a cousin and brother-in-law of the Buddha. He entered the order of monks in the early part of the Buddha's ministry. In his early days he was a good monk. Later, he became conceited with worldly gain and fame. As his ill will and jealousy towards the Buddha increased, he became the greatest personal enemy of the Buddha. One day, Devadatta asked the Buddha to make him the leader of the monks. Since he was incapable and unworthy, the Buddha turned down this request. Devadatta became very angry as a result and vowed to take a revenge on the Buddha. Devadatta attempted to kill the Buddha several times, but all his attempts failed. Later, evil days fell on Devadatta. He fell very ill at the failure of his plans, and before his death sincerely regretted his actions and wanted to see the Buddha before he died. He grew desperately ill on the way to see the Buddha, near the gate of a monastery, but before he died he took refuge in the Buddha. Jivaka. Jivaka was the most celebrated doctor in India during the Buddha's time. Jivaka's mother was a courtesan. Like Moses, immediately after his birth, Jivaka was placed in a wooden box. But unlike baby Moses, who was thrown in a river, his mother threw baby Jivaka on a rubbish heap beside the road. The same morning baby Jivaka was abandoned, Prince Abhaya, a son of King Bimbisara, happened to pass by the rubbish dump on his way to the palace. When the prince discovered that the baby was still alive, he was moved by compassion and ordered it to be brought up as his adopted son. When he grew up, Jivaka studied medicine for 7 years under a famous teacher. Soon, his unusual skills both as physician and surgeon became known. He was called upon to treat kings and princes, including King Bimbisara himself. But of all the distinguished people Jivaka attended to, his greatest pleasure was to attend to the Buddha, which he did 3 times a day. Jivaka helped the Buddha several times. When Devadatta threw down a rock splinter and injured the Buddha's foot, it was Jivaka who healed him. Rejection of the Buddha by jealous ascetics. The Buddha conducted his traveling ministry for many years. Among his converts were a bandit, an outcast, and a female supporter called Visakha, who finally died at the ripe age of 120. In general, the Buddha championed women. He also had several rich followers who left everything in order to follow him. Some of his disciples became saints, and he banished the caste system. Therefore, he received contra from the jealous monks. In the 9th year of his ministry, the Buddha resided at Kosambi. While he was there, a quarrel arose between 2 parties of monks. One party consisted of experts in the disciplinary code or the Vinaya rules. The others were experts in the Dharma or the teachings. The Buddha tried in various ways to settle the quarrel peacefully, but finally his efforts failed. So he left them without a word, taking only his bowl and robes, and retired to a forest. Later, the monks came to him and asked for forgiveness. When the Buddha reached his 80th year, he felt that his days in the world are coming to an end. Although he had suffered the sickness and effects of old age like any other man, with his mental powers developed through advanced training, he was able to overcome certain painful feelings of the body. His mind was always sparkling like a radiant diamond, even though his body was beginning to weaken. In his last year of his life, he decided to spend his last days in the peaceful and simple surroundings of a small village in northern India, where he gave his last sermon of the Noble Eightfold Path, which would help his disciples put an end to all sufferings. The Buddha's last meal and passing away. The Buddha and his disciples were invited to a party by a goldsmith. This would be his last meal. After the meal, he suffered from an attack of dysentery. Though extremely weak, the Buddha decided to continue immediately to Kusinaga village. After a painful struggle, he reached a grove of sala trees just outside the town. The Buddha took his last bath in the Kakuta river. Then he asked his main disciple, Ananda, to make a couch ready with its head to the north between 2 big sala trees for him to lie down. Now, on that occasion, those 2 sala trees were covered with blossoms, through the influence of the devas, though it was not the season. They scattered and sprinkled the Buddha with the falling blossoms as though out of respect for him. Then the Buddha told Ananda to go to Kushinaga and tell all the people to come, and the Buddha passed away into nirvana. All the people of Kushinaga, men, women, and children, came to the two big sala trees to bid a last farewell to the Buddha. Family by family, they bowed low down before him and so bade him farewell. Then the Buddha lapsed into the jhana stages or meditative absorptions. He went from level to level, one after the other, ever deeper and deeper. Then he came out of the meditative absorption for the last time and passed into nirvana, leaving nothing behind that can cause rebirth again in this or any other world. The passing away or the final nirvana of the Buddha occurred on a full moon day in May, known in the Indian calendar as Vesak. Trikaya. In Buddhist Mahayana branch, the Buddha is said to have three bodies, which in Sanskrit are called Trikaya. This consists of 1. Dharmakaya, the Buddha body of universal principle, which is beyond comprehension, yet is the emptiness or Buddha mind within all things, yet transcendent beyond all things as ultimate reality. 2. Sambhogakaya, the Buddha body of enjoyment or bliss. This is the exalted place of assembled Buddhas who received the teaching of Buddhism. It is also a place of deity. 3. Nirmanakaya, the Buddha body of appearances or transformation body. This is the body the historical Buddha walked in on earth. Sexual yoga. In the Kama Sutta Nipata, the Buddha explains that craving sexual pleasure is a cause of suffering. Therefore, ordained Buddhist monks and nuns are required to observe strict celibacy. However, in esoteric Tibetan Buddhist Tantra, the physical practice of sexual yoga is necessary at the highest level for the attainment of complete enlightenment. The use of sexual yoga called Karma Mudra is highly regulated and it involves magical rites. The rites might involve a real woman, an imaginary or spirit woman summoned by the yogi, or an inner woman, a figure from the formless realm. Maitreya Buddha. Maitreya is the future Buddha, who will be born 30,000 years from now. The prophecy of Maitreya is in the Sanskrit text, the Maitreya Vyakarana, the prophecy of Maitreya. It implies that he is a teacher of meditative trance sadhana and states that gods, men, and other beings will lose their doubts, and the torrents of their cravings will be cut off. Free from all misery, they will manage to cross the ocean of becoming, and as a result of Maitreya's teachings, they will lead a holy life. No longer will they regard anything as their own. They will have no possession, no gold or silver, no home, no relatives. But they will lead the holy life of chastity under Maitreya's guidance. They will have torn the net of the passions. They will manage to enter into trances, and theirs will be an abundance of joy and happiness, for they will lead a holy life under Maitreya's guidance.